I want to turn now to Barbara McQuade, a former U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of Michigan, i.e. a federal prosecutor, who has worked with these kind of grand juries. Thank you for making time tonight.
Oh, you better.
I don't have a big question for you other than, what do you think of this news?
Well, I think it's an interesting combination of news stories today, because we have on the one hand Robert Mueller, who is very methodically working on his investigation, going after Paul Manafort and Michael Flynn, which is a very common strategy. Go after the lower-level offenders, flip them, offer them leniency in exchange for truthful testimony to cooperate against higher-level offenders. But at the same time, we have seen this extraordinary pardon of Sheriff Arpaio. Maybe they get the message that, you know what, I can get leniency anyway, even without cooperating. I don't need to cooperate in order to get that inducement at the end of the rainbow. I'm going to get that from President Trump. So in many ways, this may be disrupting the very method that Robert Mueller and prosecutors have used for decades.
That is a harrowing thought. If that's true, is that inappropriate?
Oh, you know, I don't know. I think it is incredibly inappropriate to say, I'm going to dangle this pardon out there if you provide information that suits my purposes, the president, as opposed to the quest for the truth, which is what the Justice Department is all about. So I think it's a very chilling development.
What can Bob Mueller do about it?
I don't know that there's much he can do about it. I suppose if there are overt promises for a pardon, that would be further evidence of obstruction of justice. So I think that his obstruction investigation will proceed, and if there are either overt or implicit promises of leniency in exchange for helping out the president or his team in any of this, then that would be further evidence of obstruction of justice.
Is there a scenario where the Bob Mueller argument becomes, yes, you may be getting cover or offered cover, but no, as a matter of historical fact, Donald Trump will not be president forever. Many of the people, as you know, and some of your colleagues in the federal circuits have discussed, many of the people who ultimately went to jail in Watergate went to jail in a different administration later.
Well, certainly that could happen. They could be prosecuted down the road. Most of these statutes carry with them a 5-year statute of limitations, which would be beyond the 4-year term of a president. But one thing that's really interesting is a pardon can even come before someone is charged with a crime. For example, President Ford pardoned President Nixon before he was charged with a crime outside of the impeachment context. And so there's really no limit on the president's power to pardon. He could pardon proactively, even before charges come against Manafort or Michael Flynn. And so in that way, I worry that Robert Mueller and his team could lose the leverage they would ordinarily have in such a case. And
that brings me to the final question, Barbara. You mentioned no limit, and that's true, right? I mean, under the Constitution, as you say, there's no time limit. It can come very early in the process. That's not typically how presidents have done it, because they work with the Justice Department and the White House counsel, and they've done it differently. But that's one of the many precedents and practices that this president's breaking tonight with this mid-hurricane pardon. But the other part of this is the abuse question that I want to get your final thoughts on, because I was talking to Bob Bauer about it in the top of the show. The fact that it's an absolute power doesn't mean it's without potential for abuse. The classic example being a governor who auctions off or sells pardons, right, is taking an absolute power and finding a way to abuse it, and there are corruption and other statutes that deal with that. Given that obstruction was one of the House Judiciary issues in both the Clinton and Nixon cases, is abuse of the pardon power, in your view, something that can amount to potential obstruction?
I think so. If you use that pardon power, which is absolute except in matters of impeachment, but if you use that pardon power in exchange for interfering with an investigation, lying, perjury, obstruction, I think that could be grounds for obstruction charges, and something I think the Mueller team will want to look at.
Barbara McQuade, a former U.S. attorney for the Eastern District and MSNBC analyst, thank you.
Thanks very much, Ari.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.